The candles on my birthday cake were still burning when Chad Lawson leaned in with that sleazy half-smile and whispered that he owned my nights now. He said it loud enough for the bar to hear, quiet enough to sound like intimacy. The neon script over the pool table flickered, Rusty's Bar. Like even the sign was embarrassed. Mike Johnson, wiping a glass behind the counter, froze mid-swipe. I tasted frosting and diesel and the hollow copper of disbelief. Brittany, my wife, stood a step behind him in her red jacket like a stop sign I'd blown through for years. She had that bored, perfect look she whipped out when she wanted to wound without lifting a finger. She lifted her phone, made a show of checking messages, rolled her eyes at me like I was an inconvenience, like I was a pothole on County Road 19. Nothing more. I'd brought her here because Rachel Carter and Connor Davis had thrown a surprise thing, and I thought maybe Brittany would meet me halfway for once. Instead, Chad carved a grin into my life and said, in so many words, that I was just some dirt under the nails farmhand and he would be the one hearing her under the sheets. He said it like a toast. People actually laughed. The music died right then. Ashley the DJ bumped a cable, and the whole room inhaled as if the building needed air more than I did. Brittany laughed, sharp and mean. Jason, don't be dramatic, she said. You knew we were over. That was new information to me. Last night she'd been promising we'd reset after harvest. She said we'd do that grown-up tango more, plan a trip to Nashville, get back to being us. Lying rolled off her tongue these days like rain off the tin roof of our machine shed. My palms sweated cold. I think I smiled, the way you smile when a mugger says hand over the wallet and you realize your life is smaller than the leather in your pocket. Chad kept talking little dagger phrases. Brittany toyed with a strand of hair, watching me like a scientist watches a frog twitch. The room tilted. The jukebox coughed back to life with an old Tim McGraw song that suddenly felt like a joke at my expense. Someone shouted, "Happy birthday, Jay!" And the timing was so absurd the bar erupted again. Not sure whether to cheer or duck. Then a lot happened fast, like the world hit fast forward. My phone buzzed. Megan Smith texted, "You okay? He's trash." At the same instant, the front door blew open and a gust of warm August thunder air shot napkins off tables. Lightning spidered above the parking lot. Mike said, "Maybe take it outside, folks." In the voice you use for cows that already decided the gate is fun to jump. Chad stepped closer, too close, breath mint and cheap cologne and something sugary. He tapped my chest with 2 fingers like he was choosing a steak. "You're out of your league, farmer," he murmured. Brittany smirked like a cat who'd learned to text. I don't remember deciding. I remember my hand around Chad's wrist, his startled "hey," snapping the air, Brittany's "Jason," like a siren. The next few beats unfolded in that weird thick time where seconds are hours and your body acts while your brain is down the hall looking for the light switch. A chair scraped. Connor made a sound. Mike said my name the way fathers do when the kid is about to touch a hot stove. I walked Chad toward the door, calm as a hired man moving a bull he hates. He pulled back, but I'm farm strong. Years with hay bales and gearbox wrenches put iron in places Chad didn't know muscles lived. Outside, the storm had just started. Heat lightning stitched the field edges. You could smell rain and dust arguing. My pickup, an old Chevy I called Ellie, sat under the buzzing streetlight like an accomplice. A drunk couple stumbled past, laughing, oblivious. Words sprayed out of Chad. Bravado, threats, promises of what he'd do with Brittany later, undercovers, in ways he described like a teenager trying to sound worldly. I shut his noise down with the economy you develop when a hydraulic hose bursts mid-harvest. Act now, talk later. No instructions. No maps. Just a straight line from his mouth to silence. 15 minutes after he tried to make my birthday his stage, he wasn't in the bar anymore. He wasn't walking anywhere. He was not a problem in the room. Sudden event. Sirens. A pair. Wailed somewhere down Route 8. Rising and falling like a chorus warming up. Sudden event. The power flickered and went out entirely for a heartbeat. When it returned, the sign said Rusty's AR, missing the B. Sudden event. Rachel stepped outside, saw us, and her eyes swung from me to the truck and back like a metronome set too fast. "Jason," she said. "Think." Another lightning flash ripped the sky open and showed me the wet line of tears on her face. I didn't know whether they belonged to fear for me or anger at the circus Brittany had brought into our lives. Brittany came out last, of course she did, like a queen making an entrance to claim a street corner. She leaned on the doorframe, mascara precise, lips glossy, disdain turned up to 11. "You're embarrassing yourself," she said, sing-song, like I was a child in need of nap time. "You're always embarrassing yourself. Can't you ever be a man?" That landed. Not because it was true, but because it was the exact thing she knew would hurt. She'd become an expert in precision strikes. She'd learned my switches, cataloged them, labeled them in pretty handwriting. Anger, shame, hope. She flicked all three in one sentence. Then she added, just to salt the wound, "Maybe if you weren't so farm, I wouldn't have needed anything else." Rachel gasped. Connor said, "Brittany, what the hell?" Mike, from the doorway, looked like he wished his bar served armor. Me? I felt something more complicated than rage. It was a quiet door closing inside me. It was a ledger balancing itself without asking for permission. It was the knowledge that the woman I married, Brittany Miller, cheer captain of Green High, my prom date in a borrowed tux, the girl who once said sunflowers look like planets that forgot how to spin, had chosen to weaponize everything she'd ever known about me. And she'd picked a clown like Chad to hold the knife. Another sudden event. Thunder cracked like a tree splitting. Rain came in a sheet. Somewhere in that white noise, I made a birthday wish that didn't involve candles. Not for revenge. Not even for Brittany to hurt the way I was hurting. I wished for clarity. For the first honest thing between us in months. She smirked at the sky like even the weather was showing up late for her. "Get in the truck, Brittany," I said, not loud, not pleading. "We're going home." She laughed right in my face. Sharp, bright, cruel. "Home? Jason? Sweetheart. The only home I'm headed to tonight comes with room service." Lightning lit her from the inside. For a second, she looked like a stranger wearing my wife's bones. And I knew the night had only begun. The storm chased us all the way down County Road 19, rain hitting the windshield like a handful of nails. Brittany rode shotgun, staring out her window as if the fields were a movie she'd already seen. She hummed along to nothing, a tune only she could hear. I kept my jaw tight and the wheel steady. Ellie's wipers thumped a heartbeat I didn't feel. Discovery didn't show up like a headline. It came in annoying little pop-ups I'd been closing for months. First, the new perfume, too glittery, too nightclub for a farmhouse. Then, cash withdrawals that didn't match groceries or feed. Then, late nights with Lindsay Parker from yoga, a woman I'd never seen sweat, much less hold a plank. Suddenly she didn't like my hoodies, didn't like my boots by the back door, didn't like the music I played while cooking. Dislike bloomed like mold in a damp basement. I noticed it. I just called it a season and kept going. That night, lightning knocked the power as we rolled into the driveway. The porch light died, then came back a stuttering halo. "Jake Miller, my kid brother," texted. "Storm knocked a limb across your south fence. Watch the cattle." Brittany scoffed. "Of course you'll go rescue the cows," she said, as if the sentence itself were beneath her. I didn't move. "Phone," I said. She tilted her head, amused. "What, Jason? You want to scroll my calendar? Hand me your phone," I repeated. Calm. Farmer calm. The kind that lifts tractors and buries anger in the same field. Brittany held eye contact for 3 long seconds, then passed me the device with a theatrical sigh. Another sudden event. An alert flashed the second it touched my palm. Chad Lawson shared his location. A tiny blue dot pulsed 3 miles north. The dot was moving toward us. I opened her messages. She'd turned off previews recently, said notifications stressed her out. Inside, a thread named Upcoming Event. No hearts, no names. Boring, corporate. I tapped it. The top photo was the bar's neon reflected in a windshield. Captioned, "He's still smiling." The next, a receipt from the Pineview Motel, room 12, today's date, 1 p.m. checkout extended to midnight. Then words, sharp and smug. "Tell him you're at Lindsay's. Wear the red. We'll make it a memory." Another from Chad. He'll hear you tonight. My stomach went freefall. Heat rose into my face, then dropped to my hands until my fingers felt like I'd left them on dry ice. Out the window, the barn door banged against its latch. The world delivered percussion. Brittany watched me read, then leaned back, bored queen on a bad throne. Happy now? She said. Done playing detective? Sudden event. My own phone pinged. Megan Smith again. Police scanner says a sports car ditched it by Rusty's turnoff. That him. Another. Rachel Carter. Please don't do anything stupid. Another. Connor Davis. A photo of a glinting license plate half swallowed by ditch grass. Law 515. Chad's vanity called itself art. I scrolled deeper. Brittany had changed Chad's name in her contacts to Amber, then UPS, then dentist. Inside joke lies, nest after nest. Audio clips. Brittany's laugh in a hotel echo. A breathy be there soon. He's out with the tractor. She'd choreographed our calendar so their grown-up tango fit between weather and work. They joked about a theme song for their meetups. They rated hotels. They critiqued me like a menu item. Jason is predictable. The words sat on my tongue like pennies. Say something, Brittany said, her voice almost gentle. The trick voice. The one she used when returning a sweater she'd borrowed for 3 months. Use your big boy words. All right, I said. I set her phone on the dash like evidence in a courtroom only I could see. Let's tell the truth. Who started it? She smiled as if the question were a cocktail with too much ice. Truth? You first. When did you stop seeing me? She fluttered her fingers to indicate the outline of her body. The same way she'd once asked me to zip up a dress. Because I was right there. Jason. Going stale on your shelf. Name the day, I said. The day you picked him. Tuesday, she said instantly. 3 Tuesdays ago after the realtor open house. He said I was electric. You said we needed a new gasket for the combine. The rain softened. The quiet felt louder. A cow bellowed past the fence like it wanted an answer too. Headlights bloomed in the rear view. A sleek shape rolled past our mailbox and hesitated, then sped on. Probably a neighbor, probably nobody. My heart slammed anyway. The pulsing dot on her phone had reached the edge of our road and vanished, as if swallowed by the gulch. Get out, I said. She blinked, incredulous. Excuse me? House. Now, I said, as lightning stitched the horizon and the house sighed back into shadow. The night had begun taking things from me. I was ready to take something back. Brittany slammed the passenger door so hard Ellie shivered on her springs. She stalked up the porch steps like she owned the land beneath her boots. I followed slower, each footfall heavy, like the storm had poured cement into my bones. The screen door squealed when I opened it. Funny, I'd meant to fix that squeak all summer, and now it shrieked like a witness. Inside, the power flickered again. The living room lamp coughed a weak glow over the framed wedding photo on the mantel, me in a hand-me-down suit. Her in lace, both of us pretending forever wasn't fragile. The photo mocked me, and she knew it. Brittany tossed her purse onto the couch, shrugged off her jacket, and threw herself into the recliner like she was settling in for a TV show. All right, farmer, she said, voice dripping sarcasm. Let's have your dramatic moment. Go on. Yell. Pound your chest. Do the whole caveman routine. She picked up the remote and turned on the TV like my rage was background noise. I stayed standing. How long, Brittany? She smirked, eyes never leaving the screen. Don't act like you care. You've been married to that farm longer than you've been married to me. At least Chad notices when I wear something new. At least Chad doesn't smell like diesel and sweat every night. Her words sliced. Not because they were true, but because they were rehearsed. She'd been saving those lines, stockpiling them like bullets. You lied to me, I said quietly. You lied every damn day. Finally she looked at me, eyes sharp, lips curled. Lie? Oh please, you think you're some kind of victim? Jason, I gave you years. Years of my life. And what did you give me? Early mornings, late nights, dirty boots on the porch. Do you even remember the last time you touched me like I mattered? I clenched my jaw. The truth was, I did remember. I remembered every time I tried, and every time she turned away, claiming a headache or exhaustion or some new excuse. She turned intimacy into a currency I could never afford. Sudden event. A bang rattled the windows. The storm had ripped a branch off the oak out front. Brittany flinched, then rolled her eyes. "Perfect," she muttered. "Even the weather's on your side." I stepped closer. "You've been sneaking off to motels, using fake names, parading me around like a fool." She laughed. Actually laughed. In my face. "Oh, Jason, don't be so dramatic. Everyone in this town already knew. You're always the last to catch on. You make it too easy." That did it. My pulse hammered in my ears. The floor felt unsteady under me, as if the whole house wanted to collapse. "Who else?" I demanded. "Who else knew?" Her grin widened, cruel. "Rachel, Megan, even Mike at the bar. You think people can't see? You're so wrapped up in your tractors you wouldn't notice if I walked out naked with his jacket on." Another sudden event. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Jake lit the screen. "That car from the ditch? It's headed your way. Be careful." I looked back at Brittany. She was smirking again, swirling the wine she'd poured herself like we were at some dinner party instead of ground zero of our marriage. "Jason," she said sweetly, mockingly, "maybe you should thank me. At least someone wanted me. You sure didn't." Her cruelty was the last nail in the coffin. The confrontation wasn't fire, it was ice. Cold, final, merciless. And for the first time in years, I felt a decision settling into my bones. When Brittany spat those words, "At least someone wanted me," something inside me cracked. Not like glass, not sharp and sudden. More like a beam in the barn that finally snaps after years of rot. Quiet, irreversible. I stood there in the living room, surrounded by the furniture we'd picked out together. The rug her mother had given us. The photos of Christmas mornings and summer picnics. Each object turned into an accusation. All those years, all those promises, all those nights I thought we were building something. Nothing but scaffolding for her betrayal. Shock was the first visitor. It arrived cold, numb, like my body refused to believe what my ears heard and my eyes read in those messages. For a while, I felt outside myself, watching some other man discover his wife's scorn. A movie reel I couldn't stop. Then came anger. Not the red, explosive kind, but the deep, grinding kind that chews at your ribs. My fists curled, but I didn't swing. I thought of Chad's smug face in the bar, his voice dripping poison, bragging like he'd won a prize. I thought of Brittany laughing along, as if humiliating me was just another Saturday night hobby. Rage filled my veins until my vision blurred. Sudden event. Thunder crashed so close the walls trembled, rattling a picture frame off its nail. It fell face down on the floor with a thud. Brittany smirked at the sound, like the storm itself was a soundtrack to her cruelty. Sadness followed close behind, sharper than I expected. I remembered the girl she used to be. The one who painted sunflowers on scrap wood, who danced barefoot in the kitchen, who once whispered to me under the stars that I was her whole world. That girl was gone, replaced by this cold, bitter stranger swirling wine and mocking my existence. And I grieved her, even as I hated her. My chest tightened until breathing felt like dragging air through wet gravel. Betrayal isn't just about losing trust. It's about realizing the person who knew you best decided you weren't worth protecting. She knew my fears, my insecurities, and she used them like weapons. That knowledge broke something deeper than bones. I sat down finally on the edge of the couch. The storm howled outside, rain hammering the roof. My phone buzzed again. More texts from friends trying to warn me, to comfort me, to stop me from doing something reckless. But the loudest noise was her laughter, light, dismissive, cruel. "Jason, don't sulk," Brittany said, sipping her wine. "It's pathetic. You should have seen this coming. You're not stupid, right? Or maybe you are." Her voice stabbed, but beneath the anger, a strange calm started to take root. Acceptance. A dark kind, the sort that says, "This chapter is over whether you like it or not." And with that calm came clarity. I wasn't the fool anymore. She was. She'd traded loyalty for cheap thrills, respect for motel receipts, a marriage for a man who'd already been run off the road into a ditch. Sudden event. A pair of headlights swept across the windows, cutting through the storm. A car slowed near the gate, then rolled forward. My pulse spiked. The night wasn't finished with me yet. The headlights lingered outside, glowing through the storm like eyes watching us. Brittany didn't flinch. She just tilted her wineglass, admiring the red swirl, as if the world beyond our window didn't matter. I stood, heart pounding, every nerve braced. The car finally pulled away, tires crunching gravel, tail lights fading into rain. Still, the message was clear. This wasn't just between Brittany and me anymore. Chad was circling like a vulture, waiting for scraps. I turned back to her. She was lounging in the recliner, ankles crossed, looking at me like a judge ready to deliver a verdict. Except in her court, guilt was already assigned. "Here's the thing, Jason," she said coolly. "You don't get to decide anything. Not anymore. You think you're strong because you can throw a hay bale, fix a tractor, toss a man into a ditch if you need to. But strength doesn't keep a wife. Not when she's dying of boredom." Her venom should have lit my fuse. Instead, it lit a lamp. For the first time that night, I saw it. She wasn't just cruel. She was hollow. Every insult, every lie, every smirk. It was armor covering a pit of nothing. And I realized then, I didn't want to save her. I didn't even want to fight for her. I wanted out. Decision one formed cleanly in my mind. The marriage was over. No counseling, no second chances, no stitched-together promises. Finished. But decisions don't come without noise. Sudden event. My phone buzzed again. Jake this time, voice note instead of text. I hit play. His voice cracked through the speaker. Urgent. "Jay, listen. The cops are looking for a guy matching Chad's car. Said he was mouthing off at the station, bragging about you. Careful, brother. Don't let him bait you." My grip tightened on the phone. Chad wasn't just trying to steal my wife. He was turning my pain into his entertainment. Another decision slammed into place. I wouldn't give him that power. If he wanted chaos, he could choke on it alone. I looked back at Brittany. "You're done here," I said flatly. "Pack your things." She laughed. "And go where? To my mother's?" "Please." She'd just say, "I told you so." "No, Jason. I'll stay right here in this house. You wouldn't kick me out. You're too soft. Always were." Her taunt hit like a challenge. And suddenly my path was carved. Decision 3. I would strip her of this house, this life, everything she'd pretended to treasure while spitting on me. She'd see what survival looked like without my back holding her world upright. Another sudden event. The wind outside shifted, slamming the barn door wide. The cows lowed in panic, the storm rising like a warning drum. I grabbed my coat and boots. "Where are you going?" Brittany sneered. "To save what's mine," I answered. "Which, in case you forgot, isn't you." Her face flickered, just for a second, between anger and fear. Then the mask snapped back. But I'd already seen it. The decision was final. Tomorrow she'd be gone, and I'd start taking my life back piece by piece, storm or no storm. The storm was in full rage when I trudged out to the barn. Rain lashed sideways, soaking through my coat. The barn door banged against the siding, each slam like a gunshot. Inside, the cows shifted nervously, their eyes glinting in the dim light of the lantern I kept on a hook. I calmed them, checked the fence through the sheets of rain, then stood there a long while, listening to the thunder drown out the noise of my marriage collapsing. When I finally returned to the house, I knew Brittany wouldn't be asleep. She was waiting, perched on the couch like a predator in silk pajamas. A glass of wine still in her hand, another bottle open on the table. "Well," she said, smirking, "did you save your precious cows? Or do you want me to call Chad? Maybe he'll help you with the real heavy lifting." That name on her lips was gasoline on open flame. But instead of yelling, I walked past her, dripping rain on the hardwood, and grabbed a duffel from the hall closet. She blinked. "What are you doing?" "Packing," I said. My voice was level, steady. It scared her more than shouting would have. For yourself. She laughed sharply. Where would you even go? You're not leaving me here. No, I said, zipping the bag halfway. Not me. You. Sudden event. She shot up, the wine glass slipping from her hand and shattering across the floor. Red liquid spread like blood across the rug. She pointed at me, her face twisted. You wouldn't dare. I straightened, duffel in hand. I already did. She lunged forward, gripping my arm with surprising strength. Jason, don't you get it? You're nothing without me. No one wants a farmer with dirt under his nails. I made you look respectable. I gave you a life. I ripped my arm free. You gave me nothing but lies. Her mask cracked then. Just a flash of panic before she hardened again. Fine. If you throw me out, I'll go straight to Chad. You'll see us together every time you step into town. Everyone will laugh at you even more. Let them, I said. I'd rather be laughed at for losing you than pitted for keeping you. Another sudden event. Headlights swept across the window again, brighter this time, pulling into the drive. A horn blared short, cocky. Brittany's eyes lit up, and she gave me a wicked grin. That'll be him, she purred. See, Jason? You can't get rid of me. I've always got somewhere else to go. I dropped the duffel at her feet. Then go. She froze, the grin faltering. Maybe she thought I'd beg. Maybe she thought I'd crumble. Instead, I opened the front door wide. Rain blowing in, lightning illuminating the yard. The sleek shape of Chad's car idled by the gate, headlights cutting through the storm. Your ride's here, I said, voice cold as the rain. Brittany stared at me, wine-stained rug at her feet, mascara smudged from the storm air. For the first time, she looked less like a queen and more like a gambler realizing the table had turned. And me? I finally felt like the house was mine again. The breaking point had come and gone. All that was left was the fall. Brittany hesitated in the doorway, her frame outlined by the storm's fury. For once, she didn't look untouchable. She looked drenched in her own arrogance, caught between a husband who no longer wanted her and a lover honking impatiently in the driveway. Jason, she said, softer now, voice trembling just enough to betray her act. We can talk about this. Don't be rash. I laughed, a raw sound that surprised even me. Rash? You've been sneaking off to motels, parading me as the town fool, and I'm rash for telling you to leave. She dropped the sweetness, her face twisting back into the venom I knew too well. You'll regret this. You think you're strong, but you're weak. You'll be crawling back when you realize no one else will put up with you. I stepped aside, pointing to the open doorway. Go crawl into his car then. That's where you belong. Sudden event. Thunder crashed so hard the lights flickered and died, plunging us into near darkness except for the flashes outside. Brittany flinched, then darted past me, clutching her jacket. Her perfume trailed behind like a final insult. I watched her run through the rain, her heels sinking in the mud, hair plastered to her face. Chad leaned out his driver's window, shouting something I couldn't hear over the storm, then pulled her into the car with a triumphant laugh. Tires spun in the gravel, spraying mud as they sped off into the night. Silence fell, broken only by rain hammering the roof. The house suddenly felt bigger, emptier, but not in a way that hollowed me. More like air had finally returned to rooms that had suffocated for years. I sank onto the couch, staring at the shards of glass glinting in the faint lightning. Brittany's wine stain spread across the rug like a scar. I let it sit there, a reminder. Sudden event. My phone buzzed. A text from Megan Smith. She left with him, didn't she? Good. Let her rot. You deserve better. Then another from Jake. You okay, bro? Sheriff says Chad's been drinking tonight. Careful on those roads. I exhaled slowly. For the first time all evening, I felt the edge of peace. Not full, not clean, but a step toward it. I walked through the house, flicking off lights, touching the walls as if reclaiming them. Our wedding photo still lay face down on the floor. I left it there. Some memories aren't worth rescuing. Outside, the storm began to ease, thunder rolling further away, rain softening to a drizzle. I stood at the window, watching the taillights vanish down the county road, and whispered to no one, "Good riddance." Another sudden event. In the distance, faint sirens cut through the night again, heading the same direction as Chad's car. My chest tightened. The night wasn't done writing its ending. The sirens faded into the distance, swallowed by the dripping silence after the storm. I stood by the window a long while, staring at the dark county road, half expecting those headlights to reappear. They never did. The house creaked around me, adjusting to the sudden calm. No Brittany pacing in the kitchen with her phone glued to her hand. No mocking laughter spilling from the recliner. Just me, the ticking clock on the mantel, and the low hum of rain easing into mist. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel poisoned. I sat down at the table, hands braced on the wood scarred from countless dinners, arguments, and late-night talks that used to mean something. My body ached from tension, but my mind was strangely clear. I thought about the moment Brittany first looked at me with contempt instead of love. Maybe it had been long before I noticed, maybe years. Love doesn't shatter in a single night. It erodes, grain by grain, lie by lie, until one day you realize there's nothing left to stand on. Her betrayal hurt, but the crueler truth was this. She'd stopped being my partner long before she started sneaking into motels. She'd turned into a stranger wearing my wife's face, and I'd been too blind or too hopeful to admit it. Sudden event. My phone buzzed again. A message from Jake. Chad's car wrapped around a tree by Miller's Creek. He's alive but banged up bad. Brittany too. Sheriff says they were screaming at each other before it happened. I read the text twice. A strange mix of feelings surged. Relief they weren't dead, bitterness that fate had delivered them a punishment I hadn't. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water and sat back. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine tomorrow. A tomorrow without Brittany's bitterness gnawing at me. A tomorrow where the farm was mine alone. Where I could breathe without checking over my shoulder for another lie. I realized then what I'd learned. Betrayal isn't just about losing someone. It's about finding yourself in the ashes they leave behind. Pain strips you down, but it also shows you what you're really made of. I wasn't just a poor farmer, like Chad had sneered. I was a man who could survive being gutted and still stand. If anyone asked me for advice after this, I'd say trust your gut. Don't ignore the little signs. And when the lies pile up so high you can't see daylight, don't waste years trying to climb them. Burn the whole damn stack and walk away. The night was almost silent now. I stood, opened the door, and stepped onto the porch. The storm had passed, leaving the fields glittering under the moonlight. The air smelled of wet earth and clean beginnings. I breathed deep. The farm was mine. My life was mine. Brittany was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.